When I started babysitting, the parents gave me a horrifying set of rules. I needed the money for college, so I didn't think much of it when Mrs. Blackwood called asking if I could watch her 8-year-old son for the weekend. She offered $800 for 3 nights, which seemed like a dream come true for a broke student like me. The Blackwoods lived in an old Victorian house on the edge of town that locals called the Witch House because of its dark history. When I arrived Friday afternoon, Mrs. Blackwood handed me a sealed envelope and told me not to open it unless something strange happened. She and her husband then left without letting me meet their son first, which I thought was weird. I went upstairs to find Tommy playing quietly in his room with antique toys that looked decades old. He barely acknowledged me when I introduced myself, just staring with these intense blue eyes that seemed too old for his face. That first night went normally until around midnight when I heard crying coming from the basement. The first rule on the list they'd left was ignore any sounds from the basement, so I tried my best to block it out even though the sobbing sounded exactly like a child. By the second night, things got much stranger. Tommy refused to eat anything I prepared and kept whispering to someone I couldn't see. The second rule was don't acknowledge when Tommy speaks to his friend, but it was genuinely terrifying watching him have full conversations with empty air. The third rule was the worst. If Tommy asks to sleep in your room, agree, but lock your door after he falls asleep. Sure enough, around 9 o'clock, he asked if he could sleep in my room because he was scared. I let him make a little bed on my floor, and after he fell asleep, I reluctantly locked the door as instructed. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up to knocking on my bedroom door. Someone was calling my name in Tommy's voice, begging to be let in. But when I looked down, Tommy was still sound asleep on my floor. The knocking got more violent, and the voice became distorted, deeper, and angry. I was terrified, but remembered Rule 4. Never open your door at night, no matter what you hear. By the third night, I was ready to leave, rules or no rules. I called Mrs. Blackwood, but she didn't answer. That evening, Tommy asked if we could play hide and seek in the basement. Rule 5 explicitly stated, never enter the basement under any circumstances, so I firmly refused. That's when Tommy's whole demeanor changed. His childish face contorted into an expression of pure hatred, and he screamed in a voice that couldn't possibly belong to an 8-year-old. They always say no. Then he ran downstairs. I panicked and finally opened the envelope Mrs. Blackwood had given me. Inside was a yellowed newspaper clipping about the murder of a family that had lived in the house in the 1970s. The only survivor was their 8-year-old son who claimed the basement man had killed his parents. There was a photo of the boy. He looked exactly like Tommy. The final page contained one last rule. If Tommy enters the basement, leave immediately. The boy you've been watching isn't our son. I grabbed my things and ran to my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely start the engine. As I sped away, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Blackwood. "Did you go in the basement?" she asked, her voice trembling. When I said no, she sighed with relief. Our real son is at his grandparents'. The entity in our house can only leave if someone takes its place in the basement. It takes the form of a child to lure babysitters down there. You're the first one who followed all the rules. I never babysit anymore, and I still have nightmares about what might have happened if I'd followed Tommy into that basement.